Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. My name's Nick Park, and I'm taking us through a series of short teachings every day, looking at a book of the Old Testament and seeing how Jesus is at the center of every book of the Old Testament. And not just once or twice. Very often we'll spend 3 or even 4 lessons on one book of the Old Testament. And so we're taking our time working our way. Originally, I did this as a book called 40 Days with Jesus in the Old Testament, a daily devotional book. But we're taking a lot more than 40 days because there's so much of Jesus in the Old Testament. He is the theme of the entire Bible, not just the New Testament, but the Old Testament as well, because we believe the entire book is inspired by God. But you won't always understand the book well unless you keep Christ at the center of it and read it for the purpose for which the Bible was given, to teach us about Jesus. And we've now reached the book of Daniel. And Daniel isn't the easiest book in the Bible to understand. The language is highly symbolic, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult. Is he talking about stuff that's happening in his own day or stuff that's still to come in the future? And the answer is both, actually. But in the book of Daniel, there are significant parallels between Daniel and Jesus Christ. For example, Daniel had enemies, just as Jesus had enemies. And Daniel's enemies searched for wrong in him. They said to themselves, we got to find something that we can bring him down with. And you know what? You might think, well, surely they could do that, because hasn't everybody got a skeleton in the closet somewhere? Hasn't everybody got some dark secret or something that they've done wrong that you can find out and bring against them? Certainly it looks like it in society when all kinds of authority figures and sports people and even pastors, sometimes we hear the most dreadful things and we think, wow, I trusted this person. How could they have been like that? But you know what? Daniel's enemies searched and they could not find any wrong in him. And the same way, Christ's enemies, Satan, tried to find fault in Jesus to bring him down and destroy his mission to save us, to save the world. And Satan couldn't do it. Jesus said he can find nothing in me. Also, another thing about Daniel is Daniel remained healthy on a reduced diet. When he was a slave in the household of the king of Babylon, he refused to eat the unclean food, the special diet that was supposed to make these young men look as healthy as possible. And instead he just drank water and ate vegetables. And yet he remained healthy and excelled on that reduced diet. In the same way, Jesus, when his followers urged him to eat, he said, I have food and drink that you do not know of, and spoken about doing the will of the Father. Also, Daniel was shut up in a cave, sealed with a stone, as was Jesus. In Daniel's case, he was shut in a cave with lions, and it was sealed with a stone. And in Jesus' case, he was put in a tomb because he had died on the cross, and the cave was sealed with a stone. Both then, in that place, received the ministry of angels. For Daniel, it was an angel that came and shut the mouth of the lions so they could not harm him. And with Jesus, it was the angels that rolled the stone away from the entrance to the tomb so he could come forth in life and power and glory. But the greatest picture of Jesus in the book of Daniel is in Daniel chapter 3, where we see these 3 young men who refused to bow down to a golden idol, and the king of Babylon commanded that they would be cast into a fiery furnace. And there in that fiery furnace they did not die. And the king looked in and sees them walking about, and he said, hang on, how many people did we throw in the fire? And his courtiers all said, 3. He said, well, I can see 4, and one of them looks like the Son of God. Why? Because Jesus was there with those 3 young men in their moment of persecution, and walked with them and talked with them in the fire, and protected them in their moment of persecution so they could come out unharmed without even the smell of smoke being on them. Because Jesus is the 4th man in the fire. You wouldn't expect to encounter Jesus in a furnace, but the book of Daniel says he did, and you can encounter Jesus in the book of Daniel yourself if you read it. God bless you today. Join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.